Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and this week we are talking nonprofit organizations. So I have in studio with me the Institute for Environmental Solutions, not the whole institute, just a few people, I should say. So I have right next to me Mike Smith. He is the Chemical Footprint Project Manager. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Thank you. And then we have Carol Lyons, who is the Executive Director of IES, which is what we're probably going to call it from now on. How are you doing?
Sure. Great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, of course. And then we have John Kelly, who is the Tree Project Manager for IES. How are you doing?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. So we are, as I mentioned, we've talked nonprofits all week, and so we're running the gamut here, and I wanted to make sure we got something in on environmental impact, right? Because it's kind of a big deal, and as much as administration doesn't want to admit there's maybe climate change happening, it's very real. So that being said, Carol, if you wouldn't mind giving me your background and how you ended up at IES and why nonprofit work and environment.
Sure. Glad to do that. My background is engineering. I have a master's degree in engineering, and I have worked in the environmental field my entire career, in environmental programs for industry, for local government. And after many, many years, I got very frustrated with the way that environmental improvement was tackled. As an engineer, I saw too many instances where so-called solutions were implemented that were chosen more for their political expediency than their technical soundness. And so I spent some time looking around at what alternatives there were, and had some experience in program management that demonstrated that scientific commitment combined with stakeholder involvement could produce very effective results. It's not easy, okay? By stakeholder involvement, I mean involving all the people who are affected by an issue. And that can be a real headache. But if you don't do it, you might as well forget it. So, and I researched, well, how can that actually be implemented? And a nonprofit, an independent nonprofit organization is the best way, we think. So the Institute for Environmental Solutions was created in 2004 by myself and several colleagues who had the same frustrations to tackle programs that needed a multidisciplinary scientific stakeholder basis.
Wonderful. That's a great start. I would imagine a lot of people start nonprofits due to something being frustrating for them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love that you've turned it around. And so 2004, tell me a little bit about this journey then. Where are we now after 14 years?
Well, I had the idea for the tree project back then because I had done some work with some agencies in the Denver metro area related to water quality, water conservation, and trees. And I realized that trees have a lot of different roles and impacts. And nobody was looking at them from all those different aspects. People said, oh, trees are great for shade. Trees are great for homeowner value. But there wasn't anybody that was integrating the impact. And trees have a very significant impact on the environment. Air quality, water conservation, water quality, carbon sequestration. And so we had the idea of a tree program where we would do research on all the different aspects, environmental aspects of trees, strictly environmental aspects, and provide that information and also some demonstration for policyholders. We are not an advocacy organization. We don't do advocacy. We do research, we do demonstrations, we implement solutions, we test them, we measure them, and we provide the information to communities, businesses, policymakers to make the best of it. And so that's how it started, and just gradually over the years we've constantly evolved to improve our investigations, do better implementation in the field, and little by little things shift and expand. Initially, we were strictly environmentally focused, but we realized that just about everything that we do also impacts health, environmental health and human health. And so we build that into what we're doing.
Wonderful. I love that. So your journey's been really neat to see, and I want to jump into each of your projects that you've got here. And I assume you have more projects in the horizon for 2019.
Well, we're looking to continue our building, and again, a little bit of expansion with the tree project that John will describe. We're going into some serious effort to reduce stormwater, control stormwater, and improve water quality. So that's an area that will be a new level of research for us.
Interesting. I'm curious to hear about that one. Well, John, let's jump into it with you. So give me a little bit about your background, how you ended up at IES, and about the tree project.
Sure. So my educational background, I have 2 master's degrees in American environmental history, focused on the development of forestry policies in the early 20th century, and then also a public policy degree in environmental and energy policy. And when I finished my first master's degree, I was looking for something to do besides just teaching, and IES was a wonderful opportunity to really provide hands-on projects to communities, and so I thought it was an interesting opportunity. I started volunteering with them and have worked my way up to managing the tree project in general. The tree project itself is an urban forestry initiative where we try to solve health problems in Colorado cities using tree science. We've had multiple years of planting programs since 2011. As Carol described, the beginning of the tree project was really based in research and trying to figure out what the best cost-benefit analysis for trees were. So there was a specific list of results that were found in the early years, such as really researching a site, finding proper native species, providing great planting days with educational backgrounds for the people planting it, and then having 3-year maintenance programs to try to help the trees and shrubs establish themselves, which is what separates our tree plantings and programs from a lot of other programs that are environmental or tree planting focused. And so what we do currently is that we have 2 projects, one in the city of Wheat Ridge and one in the city of Sheridan. Our Wheat Ridge project has been an ongoing collaboration with the Parks Department and a few schools in the area since 2013. So we've done 6 years worth of planting there, and we will continue again this upcoming spring. We improve an area called the Greenbelt, which is a 300-acre open space that is city-owned and used by all community members in Wheat Ridge and from the surrounding communities as well. And what Carol was talking about is that in that area, since it's an open space, there's no irrigation, there's a lot of kind of poor ground quality in a lot of areas. What we're trying to do is help the most that we can with erosion control and stormwater runoff in the area, because it lies adjacent to Clear Creek, which obviously is a very important waterway coming down into the Platte. In Sheridan, a similar type of program, but we're working to improve a vital walking trail section. So we've been partnered with the city and the Parks Department of South Suburban Parks and Rec for the last 4 years to have yearly plantings that involve both trees and native shrubs to help beautify the space, help with stormwater runoff erosion control, but also try to encourage use of the space and to bring back some species that were lost, so pollinators and native shrubs as well. So the projects have been really successful over the past couple years, and I think the main focus of the tree project in 2019 is to continue to support our stakeholders in both Wheat Ridge and Sheridan, continue to provide hands-on education for students that are in the area, as well as environmentally sound planting programs.
Yeah, wonderful. So Carol mentioned water conservation along with the tree project. It's one of the main focuses. When I guess when I'm thinking of planting things, I'm thinking I have to water it, right? I'm thinking I might have to give extra water. So do you mind talking a little bit about how that's not true?
Well, actually, that is true.
Okay.
And that's part of what we do is, teach people about the proper methods to provide maintenance over the first couple years of a tree or a shrub's life to really make sure, Denver can be a pretty harsh climate for new plants. And so really good hands-on weeding, mulching around the base of trees, hands-on watering, usually multiple times a week. For newly planted plants are important to help them survive. Yeah. When we talk about water conservation, the important aspect is the long-term growth of the tree. It's throughout the lifetime. So yes, at the beginning of it, there may need to be some more watering on a regular basis, but the root systems that end up coming out when they're very mature can help control the water table and help conserve water from flowing off too quickly into storm ditches or into rivers that can't hold it, which is obviously why we're focused on the water quality aspect as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So talk a little bit more about the if you can, because again we're going into 2019. I'm not trying to reveal any of your secrets. The stormwater and how that's impacted.
Sure. Great question and a really important aspect about what we do. So when we jump into a new site or a new area that we're working on, what we do is we evaluate the site, what the needs are, and we try to mitigate some of the stormwater and drainage issues that are surrounding the area with native plantings, and potentially some other installations as well, but mainly through planting. So for example, in our Sheridan program over the last few years along the trails, the Quincy Trail section, there's been heavy erosion due to high storms that have happened. It's cutting out areas with pretty high incisement, which is like basically digging out really steep channels as it flows west to east towards Federal Avenue and then down towards the Platte. And so our focus is evaluating those areas that need native plantings and then planting the areas so that those erosion issues are stopped or slowed.
Okay.
And in that way help try to mitigate the stormwater runoff that happens in the area.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that, since you asked the question, it's a pretty interesting area, and there's been a lot of, I'll say, progress and evolution over the last, say, 20 years in this. I mean, if we had walked up there maybe 20 years ago and talked to some experts, they probably would have talked about pouring concrete, installing giant pipes and things, whereas the research shows that strategically, as John described, strategically planting trees and native shrubs is far more cost effective than the engineering solutions that involve pouring concrete and making it a pretty boring place to be. So not only are we achieving these environmental benefits and aesthetic benefits, making it more pleasing for the community, but at a relatively low cost, making some amazing improvements in the environment and the stormwater control.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, and I love that it's cost effective, which is big for businesses that probably want to partner and make sure
exactly
this gets taken. That's awesome. So we're going to switch gears one more time here, and we're going to talk about this chemical footprint project with Mike Smith. So once again, your background and how you ended up at IES and chemical footprint project.
Yeah, so my education background actually was in public affairs. I got a master's in public affairs in Indiana, and I spent most of my time in the public sector. What I really loved about it was I was in an ability to help people. I was a legislative assistant for representatives at the state level and directing an internship program, and just the ability to deal with constituents that were having problems with state government and kind of like help them find the correct path in the bureaucracy. So it can be a lot of frustrated people that you're talking to, and then you kind of help them out, and they're very, a lot of times happy and grateful, even if they didn't get the answer that they were, looking for, just the fact that there was somebody willing to help them. And I wanted to kind of keep doing that in whatever job I was doing, just to be able to help people. So later on, when my wife and I moved to Colorado, I was a management analyst at the Otero County Department of Human Services. So a lot of that was going around the Otero County community and just, informing residents on the newly enacted Medicaid expansion or the Colorado Connect for Health Colorado insurance markets.
Yeah.
a lot of confusion out there. There was a lot of questions, and just the ability to help people kind of access this new benefit program was very fulfilling. But I always wanted to get really, hands deep into the environmental field. My concentration in my master's was environmental management. And when we moved to Denver, IES was an absolute perfect opportunity because they were tackling problems that I didn't even really know anything about. With the chemical footprint issue, I always knew that there are harmful chemicals out there that you obviously want to avoid. But the issue of contaminants of emerging concern, which are chemicals that exist in a lot of everyday, common household and commercial products, body care products, personal care products, that aren't really efficiently regulated because they're still in that kind of gray area of, studies are coming out. We know that these are affecting they're endocrine disrupting chemicals. They're affecting the hormones of aquatic wildlife. And we know that they're causing issues with human populations, but it hasn't reached that critical point where federal and state governments are really cracking down and regulating it. So the fact that IES was doing this prevention model of listen, we hope that progress comes on one side, but in the meantime, communities can do a tremendous amount to prevent this pollution from entering our water. So IES has been focusing a lot on what we call community-based social marketing, which is kind of the acknowledgement that knowing a problem exists isn't enough for people to really address that problem and change their behavior. So we go into communities and we basically, in a combination of first obtaining information using surveys and focus groups, we find out kind of what the knowledge base is in a community and what their feelings are on example, when they go to the store and they're shopping for products, why don't they choose that safer product, that more eco-friendly product? Or if they know that a chemical is bad, like triclosan or, parabens, for example, there are a lot of issues that exist out there, and people kind of have a hazy idea like BPA for a long time. What will it take for them to make that jump? For them to say, I'm gonna switch my shopping methods, or I'm gonna make my own products, or I'm gonna use less, I'm gonna shop smart. So we obtain that information, and then we do a combination of getting people through a series of workshops and public events to make a commitment, which is the strongest and most powerful motivating factor. If they can actually make a commitment and then reinforce that commitment by reinforcing kind of the social norms to underpin it, just like caring about the environment makes you feel good. It's like you're helping the community, you're helping your family, you're helping yourself. And then, using just simple prompts to kind of remember, a fridge magnet to kind of remind you of easy recipes, or you go to the store and you've got phone apps that you can scan projects like Think Dirty or EWG phone apps, very helpful things that can give you a list of contaminants to worry about and to avoid. Or just a wallet card that has things like that. So just simple methods like that, and then kind of maintaining that follow-up, getting them to join a 30-day challenge. This week I'm going to tackle my bathroom. This week I'm going to tackle my kitchen. Just go through and just take all the products I had no idea this was in there. Maybe I can phase this out, get rid of it. So those little steps are so important because even though one person's actions can only make so much of a difference, in totality, when everybody is able to make that action, you can do a tremendous amount of change. And that's where we can actually prevent these contaminants from entering our water. Because what happens is we use these products and they either go directly into the water system, or they enter and go through our body and then pass through our body into the water system. And they're not efficiently regulated in drinking water facilities and wastewater treatment plants. So they don't get fully screened out. They enter back into our water streams and then re-enter the drinking water plant, go into our drinking water, we drink them, the contaminants are still there, they pass through our body, and then on down the water cycle it goes, building up, just the problem never gets addressed. And a lot of people think that being in Colorado, Rocky Mountains, we're getting the snowpack melt, we're fine. But, in Denver, we go through 8 bladders before it gets into our tap. So no one's really immune to this issue, and it's a growing concern that was not really being talked about at all. So when I kind of discovered IES and their issues, I was immediately attracted to that because wow, this is an important issue that's not getting attention. How can I help to get the word out and get people to actually change their behaviors in a sustainable way?
Wonderful. I love that. How do you deal with people that have that mentality of like, well, something's going to kill me anyway. Why do I need to be concerned? Because I'm sure you run into that.
No, for sure. I mean, there are some people that I'm not going to lie and say that you can change everybody's mind.
Course, yeah.
There are some people that are just very much like, what's the point? It's not impossible to change their mind. I think you need to kind of break it down to and convince them that their actions actually make a difference, not only because of what they're doing, but if they can spread the message to their family and friends and community, then you would just have progress building on progress. And really, most movements start with either one or a small group of people, and then they build outward. So, I mean, if you're completely cynical, there's probably not too much you're going to do to like fix these problems. But I have to be somewhat optimistic and hope that most people care enough to at least try, because the simple act of doing these changes really is not that much of an inconvenience to your daily life, and it's not, you know, we try and propose like strategies that are very low cost or no cost. So it's not like we're saying, you know, go buy the most expensive alternative product out there. It's like, you know, at home, like our cleaning spray is just like white vinegar and water. It's like you can't get cheaper than that.
Exactly.
And it's super effective. So, you know, little things like that where you can actually save money in certain points, or just like, hey, use less. You can probably get away with using like half the laundry detergent, you know, or take your phone and just like scan a product for like 10 seconds at the store just to see what chemicals are there, because you might have a similar product of the same price, same effectiveness, maybe even more effective, that you can just choose and just try it out. So yeah, I mean, most people I think are receptive to that.
Wonderful. And that's really great to hear, actually, because I immediately went to some family members in my head, just like, I have a few that aren't going to care, but so every little bit makes a difference. I think one of my favorite things that you mentioned overall about IES is that your main focus here is, of course, you've got things that are essentially going to involve legality issues and public policy issues later on down the road, but you're taking care of it with your community now. You're working on it now.
Right.
You're not waiting on someone to be like, oh, wait, I guess our drinking water really does have some issues.
Right.
You're taking care of it now. And I love that aspect. Was that what you had in mind for your message?
Well, it is, and it's exactly what Mike was talking about, the personal responsibility. And what we found after we started working on this was not only are you preventing pollution in the water that's going downstream, but you're preventing exposure to your body and your family. We often try to reach young parents, for example. They are extremely high interest in, you know, reducing exposure to contaminants. So that's very effective. And the overall activity with the students planting trees, the volunteers taking care of them, the people in the workshops who are making changes, it's all a question of individuals advancing the cause of improving the environment. And like Mike said, little by little, the pressure on corporations and government agencies and decision makers is going to shift the direction that we're going in and improve health in the environment.
Yeah, I would add that I think what we try to do with a lot of the programs, of both the tree project and the chemical footprint, is try to make the next generation of conscious environmental stewards. Mm-hmm. We want people to think about caring for their environment as a part of their everyday lives.
Awesome. That being said, where can I find more information?
Well, I would suggest our website, www.i4es.org, Institute for Environmental Solutions.org.
And that's the number 4, right?
Yes, I, the number 4, the letter E, the letter S. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, .org. To get just all kinds of information, we do publish a quarterly e-newsletter that updates people very briefly about all our projects. We would love to have volunteers at many different levels. We have a board of directors, we have steering committees, we have project volunteers, and we would love to have donors as well who support what we do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. This has been really enlightening, and I hope you get some volunteers and some donors very soon at i4es.org. Again, that's I, the number 4, es.org. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Alex.
Alex.